My mother's voice trembled as she placed the letter in front of me. "It's official," she said. "Your uncle has made his decision." I blinked down at the crisp, embossed paper. My Uncle Vincent had been the patriarch of Veridian Tech, a company I had poured over a decade of my life into building from a garage startup into a mid-sized software powerhouse. Yet here it was, the company, in its entirety, had been handed to my cousin, Leela, a marketing prodigy who had spent more time in Paris cafes than in coding boot camps. "I don't understand," I said. "After all these years, after everything I've done?" My mother sighed, sitting beside me. "Vincent says Leela has the vision to take Veridian global. He says you're brilliant with the back-end systems, but she's the future." I clenched the edges of the letter. The weight of betrayal pressed down harder than any server failure or failed launch I'd ever encountered. 12 years I had spent debugging, innovating, and keeping the company afloat while Vincent played the visionary figurehead for investors and media. And for what? To be told that my labor had been nothing more than a stepping stone for someone else. "Is there any place for me at the company?" I asked cautiously. Mother shook her head. "He's offered you a senior CTO role, but behind the scenes. Leela wants the spotlight, behind the scenes." That phrase tasted like ash in my mouth. That's exactly where I'd always been, invisible to the world while everyone else received the accolades. I got up abruptly, pacing the polished wooden floor of the office we'd built together. I can't do that. "I won't." Mother's eyes filled with tears. "But the company, Julian. The employees, everything you built." I stopped mid-step, staring out the window at the city skyline, glittering with the projects I had architected. "They'll survive. Veridian isn't just me. It's code, it's systems, it's people. If I stay, I'll just be watching someone else take credit for my life's work. No, not this time." She reached for my hand, but I gently withdrew it. I need to think. That night, I sat in my apartment, laptop open, not to code, but to browse executive openings in companies that actually recognize talent. In the past, I had stayed loyal to family ties and sentimental duty. Now, I craved recognition, not just respect, but ownership, authority, and the freedom to define my own trajectory. By morning, I had made a decision. I would leave Veridian Tech, not in anger, not for revenge, but for myself. I'd join another company, one that valued what I had built and knew the weight of my expertise. When I told my mother, she tried to plead, "Julian, their family. Think of your legacy." My answer was quiet, but firm. My legacy is mine to claim, not inherited through someone else's choice. Leela can inherit Veridian. I'll inherit respect and opportunity somewhere else. As I packed a small bag, I glanced at the framed photo of Vincent handing over the company to Leela. For a moment, anger flared. Then calm. That chapter was closed. The next one would be mine, written on my own terms, guided by my own vision. Outside, the city waited, buzzing with possibilities. I locked my apartment door behind me, phone silent, and stepped into the morning sun. No more shadows, no more behind the scenes. This time, I was taking the lead. I started my new role at Novacore Solutions on Monday morning. The office was sleek, glass walls reflecting sunlight off the downtown towers. I walked in, ID badge in hand, and felt a pulse of anticipation I hadn't experienced in years. This wasn't about family or obligation. This was about recognition, respect, and the freedom to do things my way. My new boss, Cassandra Reyes, greeted me with a firm handshake. "Julian, welcome aboard. We've heard a lot about your work at Veridian." I nodded. "I hope the reputation holds," she smiled, but her eyes were sharp. "Novacore is in the middle of launching a complex AI platform. Our previous CTO underestimated the infrastructure requirements. We've lost 3 major clients this quarter because of delays. Your first task, get us back on track." I raised an eyebrow, feeling that familiar adrenaline spike. This was exactly the kind of challenge I thrived on. While others panicked over spreadsheets and client calls, I dove straight into the codebase, servers, and deployment pipelines. Within 48 hours, I had identified bottlenecks, optimized system processes, and proposed a modified rollout plan that would save the company millions in potential penalties. By Thursday, I was leading a video conference with Novacore's biggest client, Redstone Analytics. Their VP of Operations, Carolyn Trent, looked skeptical as I presented the revised plan. "You're confident this can be implemented without further delays?" I leaned back, letting the calm I'd cultivated over 12 years of Veridian nights radiate. Not confident, certain. The system is stable, the team is capable, and the timelines are realistic. You'll see progress reports every 48 hours. No surprises, no excuses. After the call ended, Carolyn sent me a private message. I've been in tech for 20 years. I've never seen someone grasp this level of complexity in such little time. Impressive. I felt a rush of satisfaction that was entirely different from the hollow congratulations I'd received at Veridian. This was respect earned, not handed over as an afterthought. Meanwhile, back at Veridian, word had spread quickly that I was gone. Leela, who had once seemed untouchable, was suddenly under fire. One of my former team members, Ravi, called me late Thursday evening. "Julian, you won't believe this," he said, voice low. "The Delton project is a mess. Leela promised a 3-month rollout, and the system isn't even halfway functional. Clients are furious. Supply chains in chaos. Dad, he's a wreck." I leaned back in my chair, sipping whiskey I hadn't touched since moving in. Part of me wanted to feel satisfaction, but the truth was more complex. 12 years of my life had gone into building Veridian Tech, watching it falter hurt in a strange, detached way. But it also confirmed something essential. My decision to leave was the right one. Over the next 2 weeks, I established my rhythm at Novacore. I worked hard, yes, but within boundaries I set. No 70-hour weeks, no unpaid nights on servers no one else understood. My evenings were my own. And the results spoke for themselves. Productivity soared, timelines were met, and clients who had been on the verge of pulling out sent glowing messages praising my leadership. One morning, I received an unexpected text. It was Leela. "Julian, I need your help. Redstone's asking questions I can't answer. Please, you're the only one who can save this." I stared at the message, reading it again and again. Part of me wanted to reply immediately. Another part wanted to let her struggle. But then I realized something. I wasn't going to bail her out to save Veridian. I was going to help, but on my terms. I typed back, "I can assist, for a consulting fee. My schedule, my rates, my rules. If you want my help, we do this professionally." Her reply was immediate. "Agreed. Please, just help us before it's too late." It felt strange, wielding power in a way I never could at Veridian. The same family that undervalued me was now forced to recognize that I could fix what they couldn't, and on my terms. That evening, as I walked home, I realized something important. Freedom wasn't just leaving my past behind. It was being able to act from a position of strength, to offer my expertise without being exploited, to set boundaries, and to finally be recognized for what I was truly worth. The road ahead was still uncertain. Leela would have to learn quickly, Veridian would either survive or collapse, and I'd be walking my own path. But for the first time in more than a decade, I felt in control, not just of my career, but of my life. And that, more than anything, was the victory I had been waiting for. The next few weeks were a masterclass in detachment and observation. I watched Veridian Tech stumble from my vantage at Novacore, not out of spite, but with a sense of quiet inevitability. Leela, brilliant in her own way, lacked the experience and operational insight I had spent over a decade cultivating. Deadlines slipped, client calls escalated into crises, and the supply chain issues I had warned about spiraled. Ravi called me again. "Julian, it's bad. The Delton rollout. Half the clients are threatening legal action. Leela is trying, but she doesn't have the technical depth. We're firefighting constantly." I sighed, leaning back in my chair. "You know the drill," I said calmly. "Document every problem, prioritize what's fixable, and implement solutions only within the scope of your team's expertise. Do not try to overcompensate." Ravi paused. "You make it sound so easy." "It's not," I said. "It's the reality you avoided for 12 years. Meanwhile, Novacore thrived under my watch. Redstone Analytics signed off on the rollout with 0 complaints. Internal teams who had been struggling for months were suddenly efficient, confident, and motivated. For the first time, I felt what I had been missing all those years, the satisfaction of true influence, unclouded by nepotism or family politics. Then came the day of the major board call at Veridian, when I didn't have to attend. Leela invited me anyway, asking for strategic advice as a consultant. I agreed, but only to speak for an hour and on my terms. The call was a disaster. Veridian's board members, panicked and frustrated, pressed Leela for answers she simply didn't have. Clients were threatening to pull contracts, citing missed deadlines and unfulfilled promises. Halfway through, she admitted what I had known all along. She was out of her depth. After the call, I received a direct message from Leela. "Julian, I don't know how you did it. How are you so calm while everything's falling apart?" I typed back, "Because I understand the system. Because I built the processes you're failing to execute. And because I am no longer personally invested in your failures, I'm professionally invested." That distinction mattered. I wasn't there to save Veridian out of loyalty. I was there to advise, to provide insight, and to ensure that clients didn't burn bridges, all on my own terms, compensated fairly. For the first time, my expertise commanded respect without emotional compromise. By the end of the month, Veridian had lost 2 more major contracts. News circulated quietly in industry circles that the once promising company was struggling, even as Novacor signed 3 new clients I had personally overseen. Leela finally called me privately. Her voice was raw. "Julian, I underestimated everything. You weren't just good, you were essential, and now, I don't know if we can recover." I leaned back, considering. "Perhaps, but you will have to do it without me leading the effort. You're going to have to learn fast, or Veridian will become a cautionary tale." A silence followed. She understood the implication. For years, she had thrived in the shadow of my competence, assuming my presence was permanent. Now, the safety net was gone. 8 months into my new role at Novacor, I had not only transformed operations, but built a reputation as someone who could handle impossible projects without burning out. My evenings were my own. My weekends were mine. And my career had finally been recognized on merit, not legacy, nepotism, or obligation. One afternoon, I walked past the building where Veridian Tech still operated. The logo looked smaller somehow, diminished. Leela waved at me from a window, a mixture of respect and desperation in her eyes. I raised my hand briefly, acknowledging the struggle, but making no promises. I had chosen my path, and nothing would drag me back, not even the family I had spent so long trying to please. True freedom, I realized, wasn't about fleeing the past. It was about building a life on your own terms, commanding respect without having to fight for it, and deciding where your loyalty and energy would be invested. And in that moment, watching Veridian wobble while Novacor soared, I felt a quiet satisfaction far deeper than revenge or pride. I had finally taken control of my story. Months passed, and the story of Veridian Tech became a cautionary tale in industry circles. Clients who had once been loyal began quietly moving to competitors, and Leela's confidence, a once unshakable, had eroded under the weight of failures she could neither anticipate nor fix. I kept my involvement minimal, offering guidance only when absolutely necessary, always on my own terms. Novacor, by contrast, thrived. My strategies streamlined operations, eliminated inefficiencies, and boosted morale. Teams once bogged down by bureaucratic indecision now moved with clarity and purpose. And through it all, I maintained a schedule that respected my life outside work, evenings with friends, weekends hiking, mornings spent reading or tinkering with projects. For the first time in 15 years, work did not consume me. Then came the unexpected. One evening, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Julian, your father." Her voice trembled. I stopped mid-step. "What happened?" He had another heart scare. Nothing life-threatening this time, but the doctors say he needs a serious break. And he keeps asking for you. I sat down. My heart softened. Despite everything, despite the betrayal, despite the years of being undervalued, family still mattered. I didn't have to step back into the old dynamic. I had learned how to navigate power, respect, and my own boundaries. I could help on my terms. The next day, I visited my parents. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine, familiar and grounding. Dad sat in the living room, frail yet stubborn, his gaze meeting mine with a mixture of guilt, pride, and regret. "Julian," he said simply. "I'm here," I replied, calm. "I'll help, but on my conditions. No more 70-hour weeks. No more sacrificing my life for a thankless position. If I'm involved, it will be with clear responsibilities and boundaries." He nodded slowly. Agreed. We spent the afternoon reviewing Veridian's status. I made suggestions that could stabilize the company long enough for Leela to regain her footing. emphasizing what she could handle and what she couldn't. My father listened, absorbing the guidance without trying to reclaim control. For once, he allowed my expertise to lead. Leela arrived later, hesitant, humbled. Julian, I owe you everything. I was wrong. I underestimated you, underestimated operations, underestimated the complexity of this business. I studied her. There was no malice in me, no need for vindication, only clarity. You made your choices, I said. You took the center stage without understanding the mechanics holding it up. Now you have the chance to learn. I'm here to guide, not to replace. Her shoulders relaxed, tears welling. Thank you for not abandoning me completely. I smiled faintly. I didn't abandon. I just stopped being a doormat. I operate on value and respect, not expectation or obligation. Weeks turned into months. Veridian began to stabilize under Leela's growing understanding, though it was a slower recovery than I had anticipated. Novacore continued to soar, my reputation solidifying as someone whose expertise couldn't be ignored, and my personal life flourished. Freedom, I realized, wasn't about leaving problems behind. It was about choosing which battles mattered and how much of yourself you would invest. Occasionally, I would hear about Veridian's setbacks, but they no longer pertained to me emotionally. I had built something new, something I controlled. The family I once thought had betrayed me now existed in a delicate balance. They were human, flawed, and still loved. One evening, as the city skyline glimmered under twilight, I poured a glass of whiskey and reflected. I had been invisible for years, my efforts overlooked, my dedication assumed. Now, I was seen, valued, respected. I had created boundaries, built my life on my own terms, and reclaimed control of my story. And for the first time, I didn't just feel free. I felt untouchable in my purpose. The past had shaped me, but it no longer defined me. My family's legacy, Veridian's chaos, even the years of sacrifice, they were all chapters I had written into my story, but the pen was mine now. I lifted my glass to the city lights. Not revenge, not recognition, but freedom. That was the victory. That was the life I had finally earned. And nothing could take that from me. Life at Novacore continued to flourish, yet the echoes of the past occasionally reached me. Emails from former colleagues, news about Veridian Tech's precarious deals, and even occasional calls from my mother reminded me that the family drama wasn't completely over. But for the first time, I viewed it all through a lens of detachment. I had built my life on my own terms, and the mistakes of others no longer dictated my choices. The first international flight to Novacore's European headquarters felt surreal. I glanced out the window as the city lights of New York shrank beneath me. A reminder of the life I had left behind, the familiar halls of Veridian Tech. The family battles, the long nights of frustration and sacrifice. All of it had prepared me for this. Arriving in Berlin, I was greeted by Alexander and the senior management team. The scale of operations was staggering. Multiple projects across Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. I immediately saw inefficiencies, bottlenecks, and opportunities for innovation. Unlike my family's company, where my expertise was underutilized or overshadowed, here every insight mattered. Every decision I made carried weight, and every improvement had impact. Weeks turned into months. I reorganized workflows, implemented modular techniques, and optimized supply chains. Within 6 months, operational costs decreased by 20%, project timelines shortened without compromising quality, and employee morale soared. I was no longer just proving myself, I was shaping the future of a global enterprise. One afternoon, as I reviewed expansion plans for the Asian market, my phone rang. Caller ID. Home. It was my mother. Julian, she began softly, I just wanted to hear your voice. Things at Veridian. They're stabilizing. Clara is learning, slowly, and your father. He's better. He talks about you every day, regrets a lot, but he's proud of you. I exhaled slowly, a quiet smile forming. Thanks, Mom. That means a lot. Do you ever miss it? She asked hesitantly. The company, the family. I miss nothing that wasn't earned, I replied. I miss some people. And I miss the lessons. Everything else? I've built something better. Her pause was long. Then, he'd like to see you. Not about the company, just you. I agreed, realizing that reconciliation didn't mean going back to old patterns. It meant accepting the past, learning from it, and engaging on my terms. A few weeks later, I returned to New York, not as a subordinate or a prodigal son, but as Julian, global coup of Novacore, confident, respected, and in control of my destiny. I met with my father in a quiet cafe. No boardrooms, no emails, no corporate posturing, just two men reflecting on the choices that shaped them. "Julian," he said, voice thick with emotion, "I was wrong. You've proven your worth beyond anything I could have imagined. I'm proud, not as a father, but as someone who understands value when he sees it." I nodded. "Thanks, Dad. I hope you've learned something too." "I have," he admitted. "Never underestimate the people who quietly do the work. And never take them for granted." We shook hands, a simple gesture, yet loaded with unspoken reconciliation. I didn't need more. I had my life, my career, and my freedom. A few days later, I walked past Veridian Tech's headquarters one final time. Clara waved from the window, visibly stressed, but growing into her role. I waved back. She had inherited the company, but she was learning, adapting, and surviving on her own merits. I had no doubt she would eventually find her footing, just as I had found mine. As I got into my car, I felt the weight of 14 years of struggle lift entirely. I had left behind the shadows, the expectations, and the silent resentments. Ahead of me lay skyscrapers, projects, and teams across continents, each a testament to what could be achieved when talent was recognized, when effort was rewarded, and when one chose their own path. I started the engine and drove into the city streets, the skyline bathed in sunset hues. My phone buzzed, Alexander confirming a new project in Tokyo. I smiled. This was my life now. Not inherited, not assumed, not dictated by anyone else. I was free, successful, and respected. And for the first time in my life, I realized something profound. Legacy isn't given, it's chosen. I didn't just step into the future. I built it. Then came the unexpected opportunity. Alexander Pierce called personally one Friday afternoon. "Julian, we're expanding overseas. Europe, Asia. We want you to lead operations globally. Full autonomy, equity options, and a seat at the board." I paused, absorbing the magnitude. This wasn't just a promotion. It was a chance to step entirely outside the shadows of my family's company, to leave behind the weight of Veridian Tech entirely. The offer came with responsibility, but it was mine to wield, not inherited or assumed. I replied after a long pause. "Send me the details. I'll review them this weekend." That evening, I sat on my balcony with a glass of whiskey, overlooking the city skyline that had witnessed so many of my battles, triumphs, and frustrations. I reflected on the last year, the betrayal, the long hours, the failures of Veridian under Clara's leadership, and my own ascent at Novacore. Every setback had shaped me. Every slight had sharpened my instincts. Every sacrifice had refined my judgment. My phone buzzed, a message from Clara. "Julian, I know I pushed too hard. I underestimated you, underestimated everything you brought to the company. Can we talk?" I stared at it, unmoving. I could respond, I could forgive, I could even consult, but on my terms. Not because I owed anyone anything, not because I needed validation, but because I had the power to choose. I typed a reply, "We can talk. But understand this, I'm not coming back as the safety net. I'm coming back as myself, on my terms." A sense of calm washed over me. For years, I had been reactive, responding to the expectations of others. Now, I was proactive. I was deliberate. I was free. The next morning, Novacore's office buzzed with energy. Teams across departments were collaborating seamlessly, and my presence was respected, not taken for granted. I walked through the floor, nodding at colleagues, absorbing the satisfaction of a system functioning under competence, vision, and trust. Then, a familiar name appeared on my phone. My father, Julian. "I know we've had our differences," he began cautiously, "but I want to say thank you for not abandoning the family entirely, and for showing me the cost of assumptions." I smiled faintly. "You learned late, Dad, but better late than never." He chuckled softly, a hint of relief in his tone. "I hope you know you can always call me, if only for advice." I nodded, realizing that reconciliation didn't require surrender. Respect didn't require compromise of my boundaries. Family could exist alongside independence, imperfect, complicated, but real. As I hung up, I gazed at the skyline. My life was no longer dictated by inherited titles, unearned expectations, or misplaced loyalty. I had reclaimed my narrative. I had proven my worth. And now, at the precipice of a global opportunity, I knew one thing. This was just the beginning. No more shadows, no more limitations. Only the life I had chosen. And for the first time in decades, I felt unstoppable.